My name is Edie Sonne and I work for Weyerhaeuser company. And I wanted to talk to you about some perspectives from an actual company in terms of what climate change implications mean to operations, both on the physical side of things, we're a natural resource company, but also in terms of economics and regulatory as well. So just a brief overview of Weyerhaeuser. We are over a century year old. We're founded in 1900 right here in the Northwest. Employ over 13,000 employees, and we own or manage over 20 million acres of forest land all over the world. 2.6 of those, 2.6 million acres are here in the Pacific Northwest in Washington and Oregon. We also have land in the Southeast, and we have long-term licenses in Canada, as well as a little bit of land in Uruguay. And what do we do? In addition to managing land, we also make wood products, building products, and we also build homes. We have a home building subsidiary. We also make specialty pulp that goes into things like diapers and tissues and newspapers and publishing papers, milk cartons, liquid packaging board for milk cartons. Recently, we started a business called Weyerhaeuser Solutions that's taking our natural resource management expertise and offering it to other clients in terms of how to actually implement management in terms of providing ecosystem services or alternative energy or forest products, and that's offered around the world. And then we also have a joint venture with Chevron, which is called Catchlight Energy, and that is aimed at the development and dissemination of the next generation of cellulosic biofuels. I'm going to give a brief overview, and I'm saying brief because there's a lot of stuff that we could talk about, but I want to focus sort of on how you can manage for climate change resilience, so the physical impacts, as well as what it looks like to be trying to operate in what I call a carbon-constrained world. So that's talking about upcoming regulations, higher energy prices, what are the risks that are involved, how do you manage for those, and how do you take some opportunities, how do you innovate, how do you develop for some of those things. At the end of this, I have put a whole bunch of information for where you can find more details on everything. One of the things I encourage you, we have a whole bunch of information on our website and our sustainability report. We also report to the Carbon Disclosure Project, and that has a lot of questions on managing for climate change. Actually, most recently, we were a case study, C2ES, the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions, just released a report called Weathering the Storm, How Businesses Can, I don't know, manage climate change impacts, something like that. Anyway, that's all of that information I've got at the end of the report here. Okay, so let's talk about the physical impacts. So it's really important. We're a large land manager, and we have always had to know and understand the impacts of climate and weather on our operations. We work with on an adaptive management agenda. We do a lot of research, and all of that is looking at, what are the impacts of nature on what we need to do. What we are focused on is growing trees and growing them well. So what is climate change? What are our biggest impacts going to be? Well, they're going to be in some of these disturbances. So they could be some pest outbreaks, fire, hurricanes in the southeast, severe storms, maybe some drought. What's going to be the biggest impacts? Well, for us, the way that we work with these is we have a pretty hands-on approach to our ecosystem. So we are in there managing, and that does reduce the risk of fire, and it does reduce the risk of pest outbreaks. But we still are cognizant of them, and we're going to be going in and looking at things and salvaging and replanting on a pretty high-intensity basis. But some of the other things is that climate change can also impact some of the productivity, and these are some of the subtle changes. So whether or not we have change in precipitation patterns, what is that going to impact? Well, it could be to our benefit. We could have less risk of fire, but if we have, say, a temperature change and warmer winters, which are predicted in the Northwest, that may increase the chance of Swiss needlecast, which is a fungus that impacts Douglas fir height and diameter growth. So we're looking at that. We've got some climate models that are incorporated into a Swiss needlecast modeling, and we work with a cooperative that is focused on that. Within our tree improvement program, we also maintain a big diversity within a big diversity of genotypes within our tree species, and that's so that we are able to make sure that we are planting trees that are appropriate for a shifting climate, whether or not they have a better drought tolerance or do slightly better in warmer temperatures. We want to make sure that we maintain that diversity. We are big proponents of forest research. We spend about $23 million a year in forestry research and health and productivity, water quality, fish and wildlife, ecosystems and biodiversity. And we have a lot of cooperative research that we do. So some examples in the Northwest are, we have the Trask watershed study, which is in Oregon. We also have a couple long-term for soil productivity, long-term site productivity studies. There's the Fall River one that's in Washington, and then we are putting in a new one in Springfield, Oregon, which is funded by NARA grant, which is the Northwest. It's a DOE grant to look at producing jet aviation fuels from woody biomass. So all of that information is out there. So in terms of how this impacts, how climate change can impact us in terms of regulatory and markets, we are an energy-intensive company in our pulp manufacturing, very energy-intensive. Over 3/4 of our energy comes from biomass energy. So we're in a good position, but we still have a lot of energy. And what does that mean? Well, it means that we need to keep track of regulatory risk, climate change legislation, and it means we need to be focused on higher energy prices. That impacts us greatly. We've known about this for a while. We've been thinking about it for a while, and in 2006, as a company, we made a commitment to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from our operations by 40% by 2020 over a 2000 baseline, and we're tracking that progress. We are aiming to do this by increasing our energy efficiency in our operations, as well as increasing our use of biomass energy, which is really getting the most out of the trees. Because of this, we have really come to understand that the reality is we're going to be living in a carbon-constrained world. And what can we do about this? Well, we have a great resource. We have a great raw material, and we are focused on doing more with them, on innovating projects, on everything we do. So I'm just going very briefly through some examples from each of our businesses. In our real estate, we have, in our home building business, we have a Living Smart program, which is aimed at providing a package for homeowners of energy efficiency, water efficiency, use of resources, and the human health as well. In our wood products business, we have a great story to tell here because we have a great product to start with. We have a product that not only stores carbon long term, keeps that CO2 out of the atmosphere, but also is much less energy intensive to manufacture than alternative materials such as concrete or steel. And so we're doing different things with these products. Most recently, we created a product that created a fire-resistant coating on one of our wood products so that it can be used and fire-coated, and it can be used in homes. We also have, we're focused on the efficient use of materials, so we have panelized systems, and that reduces the amount of waste that actually gets to a construction site. We also have a Javelin software program that also lets the architects decide exactly what pieces, and then we bring the pieces to them. So all of that is pretty cool. In our cellulose fibers group, there's just a whole bunch of stuff you can do with using cellulosic fiber to replace a plastic or some other material that uses fossil fuel. And we're doing a lot on providing stuff to lightweight automobiles and to do all sorts of really cool things, wind turbines, really interesting things. And then in our forestry business, we actually have developed a slow-release fertilizer, which basically allows you to put less nitrogen fertilizer onto the ground, and all of it goes into the plant as opposed to going out in the form of nitrous oxide or leaching into the ground. All of this is good. We've been using it on our land since 2000, and most recently we have decided to sell it publicly, and we're focused on not only the forestry but the agriculture, which is really where there's a big market for fertilizer. So those are just some examples in terms of innovation. I wanted to end it on the good story of what can you do. I know it's different from sort of the climate change impacts, but I think it's really important that these all go hand in hand, that you're looking at it in terms of a whole suite of things, and not just sort of sitting there and waiting for something to come your way. And here are the information that I had mentioned before about where you can go to find more information. And I think that's it.